Okay, let's unpack this. When we talk about history, especially, colonialism, it often feels like we're getting just one side of the story, a very narrow viewpoint. But what if there's this powerful narrative that's been kind of overlooked? One that could really reshape how we see resistance in Africa.
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. What's fascinating here is how the role of Islam in Africa's resistance to European colonialism has so often been, well, downplayed or just ignored entirely.
Right.
Our deep dive today, we've got articles, historical accounts, notes here. It really does reveal a very different story, challenges that standard narrative quite strongly.
That's a really key point, isn't it? That the sources are pointing this out so clearly.
Yeah.
So our mission here is basically to pull out the most important insights, the key takeaways from all this material.
Exactly.
Think of it as like a shortcut for you, the listener, to understand this vital, often erased part of history. And hopefully you'll get some real aha moments about just how sophisticated and principled this resistance actually was.
Absolutely. It's a story that needs telling.
So let's start with those colonial narratives. For so long, they just dismissed African resistance, didn't they? Calling them tribal uprisings.
They did. It was a convenient way to frame it, disorganized, sort of backward reactions. But the source material we've looked at, it just blows that apart.
Oh, so?
It shows really sophisticated leadership. It reveals these deep Islamic foundations, a level of organization that colonial writers either, well, maybe they deliberately ignored it or they just completely misrepresented it.
So these weren't just random outbursts.
Not at all. These were organized movements. They were principled. And they lasted. They were enduring. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows this conscious, structured fight for self-determination. It was way more advanced than typically acknowledged.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Islam wasn't just like spiritual motivation.
No, far from it.
The sources show it offered a whole political framework, didn't it? A moral law, a collective identity.
Precisely. It shaped the resistance and actually even later nationalist movements, too. It wasn't just faith. One of our sources puts it so well. The language of liberation often came from the pulpit, not the parliament.
Wow. That quote really lands. It suggests religious authority became the legitimate political voice.
That's a great way to put it. The legitimate voice for action.
Okay, so this framework was deeply embedded. To really get a feel for it, we need to look at the leaders, the people who embodied this. Where should we start? Which figures really jump out from the sources?
Let's start with Uthman Dan Fodio, early 19th century Nigeria, a Fulani scholar.
Right, I've heard the name. He started a revolution, didn't he, around 1804?
He did. And his movement was really interesting because it wasn't just about fighting outsiders. It was also about internal reform. He denounced corrupt rulers and resisted foreign influence.
So what was the core of his message? How did he rally people?
He called for a return to pure Islamic principles, but here's the key insight. He didn't just wield a sword. He used theology and education as, strategic tools.
Strategic tools. How so?
He united the Hausa states into the Sokoto Caliphate. I mean, this became one of the largest empires in Africa at the time. It shows how religious reform could translate directly into, massive political and military power.
That's incredible. And this focus on education.
Yeah.
It wasn't just limited, was it? I remember reading something.
You're probably thinking of his daughter, Nana Asma'u.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, and that's a crucial historical nugget the sources highlight. She was a major scholar and educator herself. It shows how deeply education, including for women, based on Islamic scholarship, was part of the caliphate's strength. It really challenges those typical colonial stereotypes.
Absolutely. Okay, so from West Africa, where did the sources point next?
Let's jump across to North Africa, to 1830s Algeria. French occupation is underway, and we encounter Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi.
Abdul Qadir,
Right.
facing the French. What was his approach like? Was it similar?
Similar in its Islamic grounding, but also unique. His resistance was incredibly structured. First off, he managed to unite tribes that were often feuding. That alone was a huge achievement.
Okay.
But then he established schools, courts, an organized army. He was basically building a state while fighting a war. It shows how Islamic principles weren't just for fighting, they were a blueprint for, society, for governance.
So it was a holistic resistance, military, political, social.
Exactly. And it's telling that even when he was eventually defeated, the French themselves recognized his dignity. They saw him as more than just a military leader. He was a moral and intellectual force, too.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Oh.
Wow. Okay, who's next? The sources must cover Samori Ture.
Oh, definitely. A major figure in West Africa, often described as a Muslim general leading one of the most successful, long-running anti-colonial campaigns.
What made his resistance so effective for so long?
Well, again, his Islamic identity was central. It helped unify diverse groups under his banner. He built a really disciplined army, forged alliances, and he resisted the French for, what, nearly 2 decades.
2 decades. That's extraordinary.
It is. His empire stretched across parts of modern-day Guinea and Mali. And he was innovative. He managed to get European firearms, but he integrated their use within a framework of Islamic law and governance. It was this blend of modern tactics and traditional ethics.
That combination is fascinating. Did the sources mention anything else about his resourcefulness? Any interesting details?
Yes. Actually, here's another great historical nugget. Samori Ture didn't just buy guns. He actually set up workshops to manufacture his own rifles.
No way.
Yeah, and he even had his own coinage. It points to a really remarkable level of self-sufficiency and sophisticated state building, all grounded in that Islamic framework.
That's incredible. Okay, moving on. Sudan. Muhammad Ahmad, the Mahdi. His story is dramatic.
Extremely dramatic. In 1881, he declares himself the Mahdi, the divinely guided one, and leads this incredibly powerful revolt.
And the impact was huge, right? Shook the British Empire.
Absolutely. His forces, the Ansar, they didn't just fight. They won major victories. They kicked the British and Egyptians out of Khartoum. They defeated General Gordon, which was a massive shock back in Britain.
So what's the core insight there? How did he achieve that?
Well, his claim to be the Mahdi, which is deeply rooted in Islamic eschatology, gave him this immense spiritual and political legitimacy. It united diverse Sudanese groups like nothing else could against foreign rule. It temporarily brought Islamic governance back and, yeah, sent absolute shockwaves through the British Empire. It showed the sheer power of religiously inspired mobilization.
A different kind of power dynamic entirely. And then there's Libya. You can't discuss this without Omar al-Mukhtar.
The Desert Lion, indeed.
And what always strikes me is his age. He was over 50 when he really took up arms against the Italians.
That's right. He was a Quran teacher for decades. Then he becomes this brilliant guerrilla strategist, holding off Italy's modern army, tanks, planes, the works for 20 years. It's astounding.
What defined his leadership, according to the sources?
A key insight is his unwavering commitment to Islamic ethics during warfare. He strictly forbade harming civilians, even enemy non-combatants. That moral code earned him huge respect, even apparently from some Italian soldiers. It gave his resistance a powerful moral authority.
Until his capture and execution in 1931.
Yes, sadly. He became a martyr, a potent symbol of principled defiance.
And that historical nugget about him having memorized the entire Quran and taught it for years. It just underscores where his principles came from.
Exactly. That foundation shaped everything he did. It was the bedrock.
Okay, one more key figure the sources mention. Ma al-Ainain, Western Sahara, a Sufi sheikh.
Yes, a highly respected Sufi leader in the desert regions. And his story shows yet another facet how established religious authority could directly translate into military command.
How did he operate?
He issued fatwas, religious rulings, condemning French rule as illegitimate. And he didn't just issue edicts. He personally led armed resistance movements in Morocco and Mauritania. His spiritual standing gave him immense influence, inspiring thousands to follow him into battle. It highlights the power of Sufi networks and leadership in mobilizing resistance.
So we've covered these incredible figures, these movements. Let's circle back. What does this all mean? What's the big takeaway for us looking back with the help of these sources?
Well, it means we really have to challenge those old, simplistic colonial narratives.
The ones that erase this whole dimension.
Precisely. Understanding the Islamic roots of so much African resistance, it fundamentally reshapes how we see decolonization. These weren't backward leaders reacting blindly, they were visionaries.
Visionaries using faith as a tool.
Exactly. As a powerful weapon, you could say, for unity, for organization, for sustained resistance against, let's face it, overwhelming military odds. And this raises an important question. How does knowing this deeper, more complex history, understanding the agency and the sophisticated frameworks these leaders employed, how does that challenge the assumptions you might have held about decolonization, not just in Africa, but maybe more broadly?
That's a really powerful question to sit with. It's clear from this deep dive, from all these sources, that Africa didn't just passively endure colonialism. It fought back hard. And Islam was so often right there at the very heart of the fight.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. How might knowing about these specific leaders, people like Uthman dan Fodio, Abdul Qadir, Samori Ture, the Mahdi, Omar al-Mukhtar, and understanding that their strategies were so consciously rooted in Islamic principles and this whole political framework, how might that change the way you think about resistance and decolonization movements globally?